Record.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pilosopo Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Jiggy Jr. And today we have the Mactan Cebu International Airport General Manager, Mr. Steve Dicdican. Hi, Steve.
Hello. Good day, Jiggy.
How are you feeling today, Steve? How are you doing? I know you're still busy working, even though everybody's on lockdown. How's everything over there at the airport?
Right. Everything is great here. We haven't stopped operations. That's why I've not yet taken my stay-at-home vacation, unlike most of you.
So you haven't been staying at home.
No, I have not. I've been working every day since the start, except for a few days.
Describe to us the scene over there at the Mactan Cebu International Airport, Steve. What's going on over there?
Oh, it's like a ghost town. For the most part, there are no people, but we do have operations nevertheless. We have cargo operations, and we have a few sweeper flights to take the stranded foreign nationals and the OFWs who need to be repatriated to their respective countries.
Steve, when you first found out that this lockdown, this pandemic was real, what were your first thoughts on a personal note, Steve? What was going through your mind when you found out that the pandemic was real?
That's a very good question, Jiggy. I never for the life of me expected that it would escalate to this. I really thought, there would be some measures that would be taken, but to the point of a lockdown, not in a million years. When word started to circulate that there would be lockdowns, the thing that came to my mind immediately was how it will affect us as a country. Because I have a master's certification in economics, so I have an understanding of how badly uh, uh, an, lockdown will be on the economy. So the thing that was on my mind was how long will this be, and what will happen after the lockdown. Those were the things that were really on top of my head at that time.
Steve, it could be that people riding airplanes caused the coronavirus, this novel coronavirus, to spread around the world. How does the airline industry bounce back from something like this?
Yeah, so it's true. Travel. It's not just the airplanes, but travel in general, movement. That's what caused the spreading of this virus. It's really man to man, because you won't get this virus if you yourself or someone else didn't spread it to you. So to a large extent, the airline industry and the airport, as a consequence, are responsible for the quick spreading of this virus, because it wouldn't reach to every corner of the world if not for that ability. But that's the price we have to pay with all of the developments that we've had. With the quick mobility of people, there's also a possibility of a quick spread of whatever they're carrying. So there's a positive spin to that. As a result of the quick mobility, you also have easier way to spread wealth, easier way to spread education, abilities. But on the flip side, an easier way to spread diseases. Right?
So my question is, how do you think will the airline industry bounce back from this? There are already some airports around the world that have opened. What are the measures they have taken to slowly open up their airports? And here in the Philippines, are we going to sort of pattern our response in opening up the airports based on the best practices of those that have opened up in other parts of the world? Or do we have our own measures to mitigate this whole situation?
Right now, Jiggy, everyone's guess is as good as mine. There's really no idea yet on how the airline industry can bounce back. Why? Because the new normal, that's what you've been phrasing it, will be a totally different approach. So it's a departure from what was prior to the pandemic. That means that the airlines will have to redo and reconfigure how they operate. For instance, we cannot anymore pack people in tight spaces in your aircrafts. They need maybe at the start you will need to space people out, and eventually when they redesign aircrafts, they'll also have to take that into consideration. So what is the impact of this? Initially, airlines will have to operate at a loss. In the long term, passengers will have to pay more for travel. That's really the outlook. Initially, the airlines will be the ones to take the hit, but that will obviously be passed on to the end user.
I also noticed in some parts of the world, they actually test each passenger. They have a quick test. I think it takes about 45 minutes. So once a passenger sort of goes inside the airport, there's a portion there when which they have to wait. And, they get the swab and then, stick up your nose or something like that. And wait for about 45 minutes to find out whether you're positive or not. So that's another 45 minutes of waiting aside from everything else.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea, Steve, once things start opening up, especially in the airports, once we start opening up flights to travel around the world, once people are more comfortable to fly, how do you think it'll look like in the airport? What are the ideas that are being thrown out right now,
Yeah.
Steve?
So there are a lot of changes in how we will operate at the airport. So on top of how you will be in the aircraft, the airport will be a totally different matter. So in airports, for instance, the physical distancing will have to be observed, and then there will be procedures where people will be disinfected. So those will be. It's not just as a health and safety measure, but also as a way of reigniting the trust and confidence of the traveling public. Because you would want the people would want to know that there are additional measures that we have adopted. Now, on that testing, we're looking into that, and it's a very difficult proposition because right now the rapid testing that we do is a blood test. If you want the most accurate test, it has to be a swab test to test the virus, and it takes time for the laboratory to come up with a finding, whether it's positive for COVID or not. Now, a blood test is quicker, the results will be quicker, but also highly inaccurate. In some countries, they're saying only a 5% accuracy for the rapid test kits based on
Oh,
blood.
5%.
5%, because
Wow.
you're not testing for the virus itself. You're testing for the antibodies.
Hmm.
So it's an indirect test, in other words. So that's why some countries are refusing to do the rapid testing. It's really an evolving situation right now. One day you'll think you have a solution. Tomorrow the solution is thrown out of the window. So every day we try to hold meetings. We try to have conference calls to determine what's the best way to open up our industry. Up to now, there is no consensus on how to go about the startup once the ECQ ends.
I'm not sure if you're the person to ask this, Steve, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. How about inside the airplane? Will there be, will the seats be further apart to practice social distancing? Would that be a possibility?
For now, you cannot move the seats apart, but you can leave some seats empty. Right? So that's
Okay.
that's what I'm suggesting to the airlines.
Okay.
That there will be a row that will be empty. That means that airlines will have depending on the configuration of the airplane, will have a load factor of around 70% or less. So, for instance, if you're in the first class, you don't need to physically distance yourself from your seatmate. because you're already far.
Okay.
For business class, also in some planes, you don't need to distance yourself because you're already apart. But for economy and premium economy, you need to distance, at least for the start. At least for a few months, maybe we test it that way and see how it goes. If it's effective or if it's not, or if we need to rethink the whole structure of how airlines do their business.
You mentioned, Steve, that flying will be increasingly more expensive, but by virtue of law of supply and demand, plus the lower, the lowering of the prices of fuel all over the world, um, why do you think it'll still be more expensive than what it is now?
Yes, it's true. We have historically low fuel cost, and fuel cost is roughly 40 to 50.
Especially,
Yeah, fuel cost is roughly 40 to 50% of the cost of an airline in flying or in mounting a flight. But you must take into consideration the less or the lesser amount of a number of people that a plane will be carrying. And so with the effect on the number of passengers, meaning that they will not be able to carry 100% on peak performance. They will have to be, as I mentioned a while ago, it could be 70% or less. So that means they will automatically have a loss of 30% on passenger revenue. They could also mitigate that loss through cargo. So that means we are really looking into how airlines do their business. And it's a little difficult for airports to do that because airlines are how they like their confidentiality. They don't like to share how their business works to those who are not in the airline industry. So on our end, on the airport's end, we're trying to see how what the effect of the pandemic is on them, so that we can adjust our rates. We can try to help out because end of the day, you add up all of the cost and then you balance that with whatever their revenue is, and then that's how you come up with the pricing of the tickets.
You know what, Steve? This is not the first time that maybe the first time that we've had a pandemic in a long time, since 1918, when the influenza virus, just terrified the whole world. But there was already SARS, there was MERS, there was the swine flu, and all that. How did these other nations, since we were lucky enough not to have been affected by those viruses, those diseases that hit the other parts of the world, what can we learn from the way they responded when there was SARS, there was MERS, and the swine flu and all that? How did they respond to that? And can we learn from how they responded to that and apply it to our own?
Well, we cannot equate what happened in 1918 to what's happening now because the way we travel has
No,
drastically
I'm not
changed.
talking about 19, I'm talking about SARS.
SARS, with SARS, it was contained after 6 months. That means after 6 months, there was no more incidents of SARS. This is a totally different proposition because we don't know what will happen after the ECQ is lifted. We don't know if this virus will go away. We don't know if there's a lot of things we don't know. Like some people, unlike the traditional wisdom before, that if a person has symptoms, if a person has a virus, there will be symptoms. That wisdom is out of the window because even those who don't have symptoms have the virus, have the capacity to transmit that virus. So a lot of the conventional wisdom from back then cannot be used now. So using only the temperature checks, for instance, it's no good. That can in a way help, but it's no longer as effective as we initially thought it was. So that's why there will be a lot of changes come time of the lifting of the ECQ because we have to rethink about how we operate, how we do things.
There are some parts of the world, Steve, like Wuhan in China, like New Zealand, some say Vietnam, that have already sort of controlled the situation, and perhaps their airports have opened up. Oh,
Yeah,
are you following any particular
right.
nation right now, Steve?
That's right. That's right.
And I'm trying to see.
Yeah. In fact,
Are
my
you checking?
yeah. In fact, my recommendations for the uh, how airlines will conduct their business based on what we observe from these countries that have resumed their operations. So one is that there will be a row that you would leave open. So that means a load factor. That means passengers will not be 100%, will not be full, will be 70% or less. And then we have to cap the price of the tickets initially. We have to ensure that at the start, the price of um, flights will not drastically go up. Eventually, there will be a need for the market to readjust, but not at the start. We have to cap it at the start. So that's one of the things that we learned from other countries. Another is that we have to space out the operations. We cannot, for instance, have multiple flights coming at the same time, because we would want to ensure that one plane that arrives is processed first, and all of the passengers are dispersed before another plane is processed, so that there will be no mixing of passengers. That's another thing that we need to do. And to ensure that there is that proper spacing, we will have to use bigger aircrafts, so that for instance, PAL will not have to mount so many flights in a day. They can mount only, let's say, a couple of flights, but with bigger aircrafts.
Very interesting times indeed, Steve, huh?
Mm. Yes, very interesting.
You,
Things
you,
are it's continuing to change every day, and if you don't keep abreast, you get lost.
exactly.
Mm.
Um, before let's rewind a little bit, Steve. Before you know January, take us. Let's go back to 2019, December.
Mm.
Where was the industry at? Were we at an all-time high? Were we at a significant increase in whatever? Where were we before the coronavirus stopped us in our tracks?
We were at an all-time high. We've been growing every year since 2016, and that growth has been double figures growth. So
Wow.
every year since 2014, we've been growing, and the aviation and the airport and the airline industry have also been growing over the years. And in fact, we were projecting that there will not be enough pilots and flight crew to man all of the aircrafts that will be flying around, and there will not be enough parking spaces for the aircrafts. That means you need to operate these all of these aircrafts. Otherwise, you don't know where to put them. That was where the aviation industry was at that time. We were already thinking that we can't catch up with the growth in the demand for travel, and then this happened. And this happens, we're already looking at the travel industry from way back. Uh, we are already anticipating at the very least a 2/5 decline or 40% decline in demand for travel for this year alone. And we're already projecting at least a 50% reduction in revenue. This is best case scenario. So we don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm glad that some of in our industry are projecting things, even if it's the best case scenario. At least we have an idea.
Steve, how do you feel about the way we are responding to this pandemic, this quarantine, this lockdown? How do you think the country is is holding up? And do you think we will be able to control the pandemic on schedule, or do you think it'll be a little bit longer for us here in the Philippines since we don't have as much resources as people in the first world?
Well, no country is handling this pandemic well because nobody really projected that something like this will ever happen. No country has the resources to dedicate to a complete handling of the situation. So basically, what we're all doing is we're doing our best, and that's all we can hope for at this time. We can no longer ask for the ideal. We can no longer ask for what should be done. All we can ask for is what can be done, and we are doing that. So I am seeing a lot of people stepping up to the challenge, and that is already for me a godsend. Um, some people are not rising to the challenge, but you can't really expect it of them because they've never encountered a situation like this. I don't want to shine a light on people who are not doing what they should be doing or what they can be doing because to be honest, it's hard to expect. It's hard to expect people to perform under very stressful circumstances. And we just really have to hope that people will rise to the challenge. And, there's no point criticizing anyone at this point. We just have to do our best.
The president already made his pronouncements that he will sort of open up some parts of the Philippines on May 15. Do you have like a target date, Steve, in when you will start opening up over there in Mactan?
Yeah, we're also looking at that date because the moment that the ECQ ends, there will be a demand, a spike in demand for people who want to go home. There are a lot of people stuck in other parts of the country who want to go to Cebu, and there are many people in Cebu who want to go out. So initially, I'm sure once the ECQ ends, there will be that demand. And it's not just within the Philippines, no? Even from outside of the country, like right now I'm hearing Singapore. A lot of our countrymen want to go home. You must understand that OFWs are hardly hit by this pandemic. A lot of them lost jobs and they want to go home. A lot of OFWs are also seasonal, which means that the moment their job ends, they have to come home. So it's been more than a month already that no people or few people cannot come home. So there's a build up now. There's a build up of people who want to come back to the Philippines and to Cebu.
Steve, as a final word, what is your message to all those airline operators, all those in the tourism industry? Perhaps maybe you can speak to them. All those who would love to travel and can't wait to board an airplane and get the hell out of here and travel around the world. What's your message to all of us who are affected by this, especially those that go to the Mactan Cebu International Airport?
Yeah, I think the most badly hit industry is the tourism industry, and I really feel badly for them. The regional director of Department of Tourism here in Region 7, Regional Director Shat Tamano is a very good friend. In fact, we always work together nowadays because of the sweeper flights. So I really feel for them because our country, it's one of the best tourism sites in the world. We've been recognized. Some of our islands have been recognized as the top tourist sites, and we've built businesses, we've built economies around that. And now we're seeing a situation where that tourism industry will not be damaged by this pandemic directly, because of the ECQ, but also moving forward for several years, maybe there will be a significant loss on their end. And I just hope that they can hang on, and find a way to survive through this crisis. You know, crisis like in this magnitude, it will not end immediately. The impact will be felt down the road, and it's going to be a long and bumpy road. And I just really hope that they can hang on. And for the flying public, we have to we have to not live in fear. If you have to travel, don't refuse to travel because of fear. That's the only way. That's really the only way that an economy can be killed. If the people in that economy are afraid, because fear will prevent you from going around, from using your resources, from spending, and you don't want that to happen. There is um, uh, a, a effect of that. If you do not do your part, the economy will become stagnant. So you really have to travel. You really have to use these facilities that we have, like the tourism facilities, tourism industry. You have to partake. If the international community will not do it, then we as Filipinos have to do it. We have to uh, you know, do our part to help out with the struggling industries. And I think the tourism industry is one of those. So let's just help out. Just help each other out.
Steve, if they want to reach out to you or to anyone who would like to ask you some questions, or perhaps if you have any efforts in trying to help people in the front lines, and maybe perhaps a donation mechanism that you have in the airport, maybe you can share it to us.
Yeah. Yes. Right now, we're not the ones who are organizing the relief efforts, but we are doing our part to give relief. For instance, we gave to the national government an amount of money so that we could give to the fund for COVID-19, and also for our immediate communities within the airport, outside of the airport. We prepared some relief goods that we distributed to those who are having a hard time coping with this situation. So we're really trying to help our stakeholders, also our airport personnel, both private and other government agencies. We're providing free shuttle because they have no way to get to work. So we're the ones who are providing them with these transportation options. So it's a community effort here, and I think everywhere around the Philippines right now, it's a community effort. So, I'd like to laud the whole everyone who's doing their part.
Okay, Steve, I know you have another meeting to attend to, and I know you're a very busy person, especially these days that you're only 30% in operation there at the Mactan Cebu International Airport. I wish I could do this one live in person like we did the last time.
Right, that's right.
I hope we'll do it again, Steve, but in better times, better days perhaps, and do this again on the other side.
Yes, yes. I would love that because I can't wait to get back to the new normal. The normal. Let's put it that way. And although I'm always working, even though there's a stay-at-home or quarantine measures, I would like to have my people back here with me so that my job gets easier. I do the reporting myself right now because I don't have anyone to ask help me out. I print everything, I scan everything. It's a difficult situation, but that's my way of coping with this. With this, I'm doing my part, and everyone do your part also.
Okay, I'm glad that you're in your office safe and sound over there, Steve. I'm here in my daughter's bedroom as well, and you stay safe, okay, Steve? Thank you so much for doing this, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mactan Cebu International Airport General Manager. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.